I can hear it now. Fans take the field, and out of that eastern tunnel pour 215 well-drilled, well-disciplined Michigan bandsmen. They pour over the eastern sideline, they form the big block hymn, and they play the greatest college fight song ever written.
Hey, Seth, how you doing, man?
Ready to talk basketball?
Yeah, no football talk, at least for the first couple minutes here. We are
going to have to talk about football? All right.
I don't want to, but my therapist
before we
told
recorded,
me,
you made me promise that I would talk football with you, so I'm going to do so.
My therapist told me it was extremely important for me to talk about my feelings, right? And my therapist, by that I mean I watch Dr. Phil occasionally in the afternoon if I'm really bored, and he says it's important to talk about your feelings. So we're going to talk about our feelings, but first, here's my first feeling of the day. It feels really good to be a basketball school instead of a football school because the stakes are a lot lower, right? So that feels good.
I think it feels like they were coming back a little bit from, the ridiculous highs they were. Like, Michigan is not a defensive, they're not the best defensive team of all time. And they looked like it for a few weeks.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're definitely not the best defense of all time. We've got a really good defense, though, and I agree. We're coming down off that high a
and that's
bit.
fine. It's fine. Like, you look at the best defenses of all time, and other than the fact that two of them were the same year, it's like a North Carolina team, a Michigan State team, and maybe a Kansas team. Like, they were all teams that were just absolutely chock full. It was last year's Michigan State team was one of them.
Yeah.
And those are teams that could just got a million blocks because they had just a million athletes. They're all 6'7" guys who are going to the NBA in the first round.
Yeah,
right?
well, what I love about this team, though, so far is, if we can hold somebody under 70, we have multiple guys who could put up 30 points in a night. We don't have – the scoring is really balanced, and you even have Xavier Simpson, who – could be putting up more points if he wasn't just really playing within the offense. One of the things
Simpson is going to be Simpson.
Yeah, well, but he's not driving nearly as much as he needs as he could. I think he's got a great ability to finish around the basket and draw fouls, and you saw that some last year where, hey, if things weren't working, he just started going and running into the 7-footer underneath and laying it off the backboard and getting the and one. So this team, though,
I mean, if he's going to have that little floater, that's a crazy shot.
Floater.
Yeah. That's a crazy shot.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to count. And his free throw shooting kind of demonstrates that he's not ever going to be like a great shooter. But I do think, and this is the same theme, these last two games, the South Carolina and Western Michigan game, were kind of like the regressions. So the offense is not as bad as they looked when they were just
Hey, Mira.
missing everything. Well, there's my daughter.
She wants to roast the marshmallows.
She wants to roast marshmallows really badly.
And she wants to hear us talk about football. Before that, if you could pick your two players, your one or two players that are key to the rest of this year and why, I'll tell you mine too.
I mean, Teskey obviously won.
Yeah.
And in honor of Ace, Poole.
Okay. All right. So
I mean, Matthews is like, Matthews and Teskey are like the players on this team right now.
Yeah.
Like everyone's good on this team. Iggy's great too.
Yeah.
But I think Poole is your X factor. So
yeah,
that's the guy.
I think so. I really look at Livers and Iggy sort of as a 1-2 at this point. I think one or the other could start. For me, the thing I'm most nervous about is developing a legitimate full-time backup center, because Teskey has really proven himself. The second he goes off the court, there's a big drop-off. And I don't know if you've noticed it yet, but watch for when Simpson goes off the court, the defense regresses significantly without him out there. His effort level just takes it way up there.
Yeah, and they have had a history of leaving the young guys on the bench in November.
Yeah.
So remember, this time last year, Xavier Simpson was just starting to become the starter.
Yeah.
So Eli Brooks was starting for November last year, and then in December was when Xavier started asserting himself.
Yeah.
So this teams under Beeline grow, especially the freshmen.
Oh, most of
I don't want to just say that just
we're
Beeline
bad at this time of year. We're still saying, we're no good.
But I want to emphasize too that it's not just Beeline. Like the players that he gets are the kinds of guys who develop faster, but I think they put it on themselves to do it.
Yeah.
And I think I think Johns is going to develop more this year, and I think that could be an answer for your kind of some backup center minutes. Livers does give them an opportunity to get some backup center minutes. There's not a lot of teams that can't go, with that small outfit for, 10 minutes at least.
Yeah.
So you can do it in the aggregate. And then, Austin Davis isn't as bad as he has looked.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree. So here's the thing. Basketball is so hard to judge right now because it's so different than the normal Beeline narrative. I'm very excited about where we are. I'm really excited about the fact that Gonzaga went, and North Carolina and dropped as many points in that game. North Carolina dropped as many points as they did on Gonzaga in that game. It made me feel like, hey, wait, we belong here. I think there's a lot of teams that belong in the top 12. I don't want to do this, Seth, but I'm going to transition us right now. So, man, I have not been able to talk about this. I haven't thought about it. I don't want to think about it, but we need to transition into talking about football. Even though we're a basketball school, we should.
Why did Ohio State kill my dog, Matt?
I know.
Why does Urban Meyer hate my dogs? Every year I get a new dog, and they're sweet dogs, and then Urban Meyer just, I mean, honestly, it feels like your dog died. And, to explain to people who don't have a dog what it's like when your dog dies sucks. It's like, man, you really go through the grieving process.
Yeah.
And I, have been through it enough times now. This loss happens every year, and my expectations were higher. My soul was a little more bared than it usually is. But, that happened in 2016 too. And, you remember me walking out of Ohio State, almost starting fights with Ohio State fans, and I know the process now. I'm good at getting myself from there to there, and part of it is I rewatched a little bit of games, to give myself a little taste of it. Rewatched the Penn State game, and then kind of remembered some of the feels from the rest of the year. And the other thing is I've been watching a lot of Florida because I have to do the faux film for those.
Yeah.
And that helped more than anything.
Yeah.
Because watching the SEC play itself and seeing how bad those teams are, and okay, these are the teams. Georgia is supposed to be a top team in the country, right? They're awfully coached. They were letting Florida stay in the game way longer than they had to. And you look back at their schedule, and Georgia had just by a little bit worse season than Michigan.
Yeah.
So you match up all their games, match up their performances. I think Michigan should be ranked above Georgia for this season. Now, does that make Michigan's a number 4 team? No, I think Georgia was vastly overrated, and Michigan should be in that spot. I think the 4 teams in the playoffs are the correct teams. But this was a really good season, and I think that, was Harbaugh going to get us to Alabama level? Some things around college football have to change to get to that level.
All right, so and I guess to me, Seth,
he's got us to Bo. We're back to Bo.
Yeah,
it felt like a Bo year again.
Well, yeah. Here's the thing, Bo had no national championships. Lloyd Carr had one. You're looking back through some of the heyday of the Lloyd Carr era, which now we look back at so fondly, as we were forcing him out the door to bring in a modern era of football. But you look at the records, 10 wins, 11 wins, and obviously there's another game now, right? So you have to factor in that we play more. But these have been 4 good years of fun football to watch and relevant football. Now, here's the thing. Are we okay with, getting basically to the Big Ten semifinals every year and getting trounced, right? And the divisions are a mess.
No,
that whole thing needs to change, but it's just, I don't know if I'm okay. I don't feel okay right now.
So that wasn't our thing. That was Ohio State's thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And the best thing I've ever read on Urban Meyer, I can't remember who said it. It might have been one of the 11. It might have been Ramsey. Or it might have been an SB Nation guy. But he said that Urban Meyer overclocks his teams. So he gets on there and overruns everything. You know what overclocking is. You got Yeah. So
no, I'm a big enough. I mean, let's be honest. I mean,
right.
I'm a nerd too. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So and that's and it wears out.
Non-nerds, it's where you take your computer and push it way past its limit, and you burn it out fast, but it runs really sweet while it's working.
Exactly. And that's what he does to his teams. Now, look at the coaching staff he put together. Those people can't stand each other. Look at the players that he puts on the team. Those guys are all, they're mercenaries. They're there to win. And that's the whole point of going to Ohio State is everyone's there because they're collecting for, just to hit that performance.
Yeah, so until now maybe, right? Because, it hasn't been talked about a whole lot on the blog, but Ding Dong, the witch is dead. Urban's gone, right? And what's going to change, though? I mean, is that going to change? Obviously, Day.
Well, the first thing that happened is they got Zach Harrison because he wasn't going to go there if he if Urban was there.
Right. Harrison didn't like Urban. He made it very clear that he didn't trust him. That the whole scandal, was basically a flipping point where we got back into his recruiting window, and then now,
and Ryan Day taking over. I mean that. It sucks, but it's this is how Ohio State always kind of operates. They just get really lucky in their transition period, so they don't have to pay the piper that everyone else has to pay.
And Day has not. Correct me if I'm wrong, but he's not been a head coach anywhere. Correct?
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, and so
he's got a pretty flimsy resume.
Flimsy resume.
He is
obviously, they know
well
him.
thought of. I don't want to people have been looking at his resume and saying, okay, Ryan Day hasn't done anything, but in the coaching circles, he is very well thought of.
Yeah.
And the things that they ran against Michigan were core Ryan Day. In fact, the two plays that they were killing us with, both of them were drawn up in Hail to the Victors this year, as Ryan Day plays.
And Seth, you're way ahead of the curve. That's a little toot of your own horn right there. No, I'm just kidding. Excuse me. I need some more coffee from
Ross Fulton. I have to give credit for.
You guys watch The Office, anybody? But I did not buy this. This guy's an awesome dad mug himself. But I think I also got it before any of the kids could read. So, but yeah. So if you see me drinking the coffee, I got a little sore throat today. It's that time of year. All right. So.
Eat them up.
What? Yeah, there we go. Eat them up. Eat them up, Tigers. Eat them up. Remember that guy with the fist?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There was a newspaper article about him when he passed.
Yeah, I like that guy. He was always by our entrance. All right, so we digressed a little bit. What about recruiting? What about Dax Hill? Makes you think that we're not just going to get run into the ground with those little slants.
So here was the problem against Ohio State.
Yeah.
Michigan goes in. Michigan's the #1 defense in the country, and they think that they can play their cover one against anybody with Brandon Watson at corner, just like they have all year, right?
Yeah.
That has been Michigan's MO. And when you're the #1 defense in the country, it's hard to get yourself out of this idea that I can just go play man-on-man with people. You couldn't. Michigan did not have the physical talent to match up with Ohio State's slot receivers. Paris Campbell and KJ Hill are just way beyond the capabilities of a guy like Brandon Watson.
Yeah.
And the way Michigan aligns, they're trying to dominate. And the way you make up for that, because you're doing that to basically cut off any chance of a slot fade and that kind of thing over your head, right?
Yeah.
So everything gets forced back to the middle. You can get away with that if you have an athlete at safety who's at least as athletic and hopefully more athletic than the guys he's covering. Against Northwestern, we pretty much got away with it. Northwestern threw a ton of slants, and I think they averaged about 4 yards. Now, they looked like they were doing damage to us because I think they got 50 yards on them. But it took them 10 attempts to get 50 yards on them.
Yeah.
And eventually they were throwing into some of the checks that we have against that.
Yeah.
You can't run that defense that way without using your checks that often, with just playing base and lining up and doing it again. If you are at such an athletic disadvantage, and I know Brandon Watson plays cornerback, but Brandon Watson was getting matched up, and they were doing that to him on purpose with those receivers that can beat him inside. And they're going to try to do it with Khaleke Hudson, and they protected him from that. You can do that with Dax Hill.
Well, and what you saw, we broke down a play against Rutgers too, like the play where they scored their one touchdown.
Right.
You know, and part of that play was just not having the speed to close in the secondary.
Yeah,
one
with Brett
player,
Hawkins.
you know, one player doesn't solve that, but you get one faster player on the field, you can put the next fastest guy at the other spot. I mean, it improves potentially 2 spots to have.
Yeah, and
you
that's
know,
the
a guy
good.
like
That's
that.
a good point. I mean, I don't know what we're talking about recruiting classes as it's one guy, but like, that's a good point for Brett Hawkins because Brett Hawkins is the guy that Dax is going to be immediately in competition with, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you talk about overclocking, right? Yeah, exactly. I mean, and you talk about overclocking, getting guys in that you know, are hyperspeed guys that can go a million miles a minute, guys that can put a lot of plays under their belt. You know, we need guys like that. We need wide receivers, big wide receivers on the outside, like Cornelius Johnson. Is Cornelius Johnson? Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't know all your names yet. I'll learn them. So, don't worry.
So I mean, Michigan this year got a whole bunch of slot guys.
Yeah,
and they haven't had a slot guy who was, you know, effective as a slot guy since, you know, not counting Rich Rod, whose offense was built for that.
Yeah, not since Dilio, maybe.
Yeah. Even Dilio was more kind of like a Grant Perry, where like he was a route runner.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking like they went out and got themselves some athletes.
Yeah.
And like that's gonna give Michigan an opportunity to do some of the things to other people that Ohio State did to them. Because like Giles Jackson is, you know, he's Dennis Norfleet, or like what we wanted Norfleet to be. Sainer still, I think, might be the best of them. This was a conversation I had yesterday with the guys on the podcast. But like apparently the like Dudek has been saying the same thing, that like Sainer still is just a ridiculous athlete. And then you know, they also got George Johnson, who is the guy that 247's all pumping up. So like.
All these guys, man. If we can run. I mean, we already have a great stable of older wide receivers in my mind, you know, and we have some guys that we haven't seen yet that have been talked up. You know, we haven't seen a whole lot of Oliver Martin yet. So we have some guys out there. Obviously, we haven't got nearly as much Tariq Black on the field over the past 2 years as we would have liked. Yeah. And Peoples-Jones could be one of the best receivers in the country next year. Okay, so receivers, I think we're good. You know, like, tell me about why I should not be freaking out about the defensive line for next year.
Well, for next year.
Yeah. And this recruiting class is unfortunately going to have to play a part. I mean,
losing Aubrey is a big deal.
Yeah.
You can't sugarcoat that. Aubrey was going to be an important part of the defense. You saw this year that like one of the places that could get gashed was in the middle.
Yeah.
And that's because Dwumfor, I mean, maybe Dwumfor takes a big step next year, but right now he's just a pass rusher.
So I had a crazy idea, Seth, you know, and maybe it's not crazy, but let's switch to the other side of the ball, and then I'm going to tell you what I'm thinking.
Okay.
If we lose a key guard next year, give me 3 guys, you know, like where can we get, if Onwenu has to go back to defense? I mean, honestly, I don't know that it's tell me what happened to the offensive line if he goes and plays nose tackle, right?
He'd have to learn it all over again.
Yeah.
I mean, no. You do not want to lose Onwenu. Because next year,
or do you want to gain, or do we need to gain Onwenu because he came out as, you know, a really good interior defensive lineman.
His
you know,
problem
I don't think he's forgotten
has been like he can't stay on the field because he gets worn out.
Yeah.
You know, he is listed at 360. I think at times in his career at Michigan, he's been over that. And he is, you know, he's worked hard at it, I'm sure. But a guy like him, it takes a lot of energy to keep that body moving.
Yeah.
And offensive line is one thing. But if he is nose tackle and getting doubled all the time,
yeah,
you know, those guys, the best of them are on the field 70% of the time.
Yeah.
Like they always have to come off the field.
All right. So how about this? We just put him in, you know, 3rd and 2 and goal line situations. Can we do that? All right.
Oh, I think he could be the goal line nose tackle totally.
Yeah. I mean, maybe that solves a little bit of an issue.
Michigan doesn't have nobody. You know, Mozzie Smith, I think, is going to play right away.
Yeah.
And, you know, he'll at least be in the rotation. Getting it, like, even great defensive tackles take, a half a year or so to, like, really be in there all the time. But, you know, they got Donovan Jeter. They've got him some playing time. Carlo Kemp's going to be another year bigger and a year better. Yeah,
I'm excited about Kemp. I like his motor. I like his attitude. I like him, everything about him. I mean, he comes from a great football family, the Pagano family. I think that guy's going to be. I think he's going to take a step. I think he's going to take a step forward and be more of a star and a leader on this defense next year.
Yeah, and they can move Paya back too.
Yeah, that's a good point. All right, so next year we talked about enough about that. Let's talk about the bowl game that nobody cares about, including apparently.
I got when I wrote the Devin Bush thing. I'm literally writing an article here about a guy skipping the bowl game because he doesn't care about it as much as his NFL career. And
which there's a lot of it that you can't I segue. I want to jump in and just say I totally understand. I understand. I understand the money involved of getting hurt. Bush almost got hurt in the Ohio State game at the end. That looked worse than it was. Rashawn Gary had the shoulder that he should have had surgery. It sounds like last offseason, didn't do it. Dealt with it all year long. I understand the money at stake. I get it. From a fan's perspective, man, it makes an already meaningless game even harder to care about.
So now I'm a lot more worried because scouting Florida, I'm okay, this is a team that Michigan can beat, but they're a decent team. They're not nobodies, but Michigan can go up against them the way they beat. They're like Wisconsin or Michigan State or a Penn State kind of level.
Yeah, when the Ohio State game got really bad, it got bad when Bush was not there to eat up everything sideline to sideline.
The cornerbacks playing, we just don't know if both of them are going to go to the NFL this year, but the cornerbacks playing is a big deal, I think, because they only ran 3 corners this year. Mm-hmm. So we haven't really seen, we're going to see Ambry either way, especially because the team that Florida has. But I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, and I don't want to say things for other people that they said in private. But I talk to former players.
Yeah.
And I talk to former players who are my age, right? Guys who played for Lloyd. And they're upset that players skip bowls, especially Michigan players. Their feeling is, and granted, they ate the Lloyd era line, hook and sinker, right? But they see Michigan as something that's more. Skipping, if you're playing for Ohio State, that makes sense. You're only at Ohio State because you're a mercenary. There's nothing good about Ohio State that makes you say, oh, I'm glad I went to Ohio State University. It was a beautiful campus. I had a great education.
I just really enjoyed
this
the
is
culture.
A wonderful experience. The Olatangi River is so beautiful.
It's the brownest river I've ever seen. It's gorgeous.
Right. Or, I don't want to knock everybody here, but Penn State is Penn State is if somebody decided to create a team on NCAA 14, right? Or an older version of NCAA where you could only put a stripe on a helmet and here's the 3 generic songs you can play in the stadium.
You know what Penn State's campus and stadium remind me of? Honestly, if you put a giant fence around it, it looks like a prison town. It really does. No offense to my friends from Penn State. I don't have any friends from Penn State.
I do, and Penn State does create meaning around themselves. And I'm sure Ohio State people believe that Ohio State has some value too.
No, you said it. It's out there. All right. Everybody knows it.
But the sense that the old guys have is Michigan is special. And it was a privilege to be able to put on the winged helmet. And mostly the one thing that really bothers them, and I'm kind of quoting from someone I was talking to, you are going to be a fan as soon as you're done playing. Even if you're in the NFL and you're playing there, and I know that's the thing that you want to always do, but you're going to be a fan from here on out. And fans can't do anything about what's on the field. The best you can do as a former player is maybe get invited back to talk to them. But you're going to be screaming at your television like everybody else from now on. And you are going to be kicking yourself the rest of your life for not having the opportunity, especially if they lose. Imagine if Michigan loses to Florida and your program looks awful because of it. And you could have been there to help that. You're going to be kicking yourself the rest of your life. You only get this small chance to ever play for a team that you chose to be on. In high school, you go to whatever high school you're supposed to go to. Maybe your parents can put you in the local private school. Maybe you can transfer to another private school. But you're pretty stuck to a small selection. NFL, you're going to get drafted, or if you don't make the NFL, you're going to have to go try out for whatever team will have you, or you'll go play in Europe or whatever. This is the only time you get to choose to play on a team. And these are the guys that you chose to play with. And, not playing is kind of like abandoning them. Now, that's what former players feel. I totally get. With everything at stake, where you are in your life, what you've been building towards, I get it. I don't hold it against anybody who doesn't play. I think people who do play, I think you can appreciate. It's fair to appreciate them more than the people who don't.
Yeah, I mean, the risk is huge, Seth. I mean,
yeah.
Jake Butt,
especially like,
if you think about his knee injury, I mean, the risk is huge. Now you do sign up for a scholarship to play for a team for a season, right? And what the point I brought up the other day, which is one people don't talk about a whole lot, is what if we come out and lose to Notre Dame and lose to Michigan State and lose another game, and we're sitting there at 3-3, and the rest of the games on the schedule are essentially meaningless. At what point does a Devin Bush or Rashawn Gary say, you know what, we've got 5 games left in the season. I don't care if my scholarship gets pulled, because the second I leave school, an agent's going to give me $300,000.
It's called a Nick Bosa.
Yeah, exactly. A Bosa. And at what point does that happen?
So that's the thing. The NCAA, and we were talking about this on the blog today too. The NCAA does not have any way, once these guys are done playing, or once they've established themselves to the point where they're going to get drafted, there's nothing the NCAA can do to them. There's nothing their team can do to them. There's no leverage that they have over them. Now, if you paid them and you signed them to a contract, then they would be in breach of contract. And obviously, you get once in a while some NFL player might, who's on a team that didn't make the playoffs, might not play in December, right?
Right.
Because
and a coach could take a stance, right? Because players are getting paid. A coach could say, "Hey, listen, if we're not in it in the last 3 games, I'm not going to make you play. I'm not going to because that would be a thing a coach could do for recruiting advantage if they decided to, but you wouldn't have to. And you could, if somebody's under contract and they're not performing in the NFL, they get suspended without pay. If you don't show up to practice, you don't show up to camp, they don't get paid, right? And
they get fined. They get fined for breach of contract.
Well, exactly. I mean, they get paid, but the money gets taken back through fines.
And so the NCAA built themselves this thing and they're sitting on this legal precedent that makes no sense. And they're, it's just a legal excuse for them to keep the money that they should be paying the labor. And because of it, they've gotten themselves in this situation. And little things like this are going to keep happening because the players know what the deal is, and they know what the value is. The value that they get by playing NCAA football is that it prepares them, and it shows the NFL what they can do.
Yeah.
Once they've gotten to that point, once you've had your best game, take the shoes off, right?
Yeah.
Now you're just going to go down from here.
I agree.
I think the other thing they can do is the NCAA could go to the NFL and say, look, if a player doesn't play in the bowl game, then you can slot them lower with their draft pay. You can, the NFL could do things too.
Yeah, I
don't think the NFL has any interest in doing that.
There's a tipping point coming here, and I think it's a positive tipping point because right now it's broken. Right now it's not working. It's very clear when you have coaches making $5 million and you have coordinators making $2 million. When you have a $10 million payroll for athletic staff around the football team, and obviously we all know that players get more than just a scholarship. There's more to it than that, but the amount of money that's floating around, and the issue is though, you have Bowling Green, 100 miles or 60 miles down US 23
right
from Ann Arbor, playing in essentially the same, they can play for a national championship. They're never going to get there, but they're playing under the same rules, but they're not going to have $10 million.
So the Power Five, this is, this has been coming a long time. The Power Five has historically separated itself. So they, first they had divisions. First they had just everyone played, right? Then we had divisions, Division 1, 2, 3, whatever, and different rules for different divisions. But everyone wanted to be in Division 1. Everyone was bouncing into Division 1. So then they split Division 1 into one AA and one right?
Yeah.
And then they, split it into FCS and FBS.
Yeah.
And now a whole bunch of FCS teams have come up to FBS, and the number has expanded beyond 130 teams, and it's time to chop it down to 60 teams again. And it's happened so many times because the idea that Eastern Michigan and Michigan are competing for the same championship is ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, let's do this on another show. Let's talk playoff formats. Let's talk divisions.
Yeah.
Of that. Man, this has been fun. I mean, not fun at all because I didn't want to talk about the Ohio State game. I didn't want to get into it. But man, I'm still not over it, and I'm not going to get over it.
Basketball, Matt.
Basketball. We got basketball. All right, man. I hope you have a good day. That was a lot of fun. Let's talk basketball more on the next episode too.
Yeah, we should go through some tape now.
Yeah, let's go through some plays, some things that are working. All right, man. Happy holidays. If we don't do this before the new year, I'm saying happy holidays if I'm not going to talk to you.
And happy birthday to you, by the way.
Thank you. I keep getting older. I'm trying to do something about it. There's not a whole lot. The good thing is I'm like a fine wine. I just keep getting better with age, I guess. Nobody's told me that, but that's sort of my opinion. So.
Sure.
All right, man. Have a good day.
See you, Matt.
The greatest college fight song ever written.